of Baal, and the 400 prophets of Asherah, also called priests, who spoke an untruth to the people all over Israel. Elijah also knew it was going to take more than just speaking prophecy. This wicked king hated God's prophets because they spoke against sin and idolatry and undermined their control of the people. The stagnation between two opinions were displayed. As Elijah stood on Mount Carmel, he challenged the people to take a stand, just as we are challenged today. Take a stand and follow whoever was your true God, whether it's to serve God or Baal. People's indecisiveness remains so obvious. That mixing of the two worships appeared to be their choice. Why did so many people waver between these two choices? Was it because they were not sure? Do we waver in our decisions, making decisions, because we're not sure? That could be a possibility. But another possibility is that we choose to stay in the middle ground, so our acceptance in the world is not as severe. We want to be loved by the world. In this context, many knew that the Lord was God, but they enjoyed the sinful pleasures and other benefits that came with following Ahab in his idolatry worship. The flesh desires hasn't changed. It still wants what it wants. This flesh likes to hover around the things of this world. Romans 8 speaks of the fleshly mindset. Paul demonstrated 2 times in the text when he spoke about the mindset of man, the mindset of the flesh and the mindset of the spirit. Which one do we choose? Things that can cause us to wander off and lose sight of God, which in turn affects our capacity to think right. We're engulfed in the world, the things of the world. And it has changed the way we think, or the way we stay within tune with God's Spirit. It is God's Spirit that keeps our spirit in subjection. It affects our ability to make good sound judgment. In that case, we have to be restored. Sometimes the restoration process requires a full display of God's power. God's power is not equated to high-pitched voice from the pulpit. It's the Spirit of the Lord that sends rains. Just as it's stated in the text, Elijah eventually prayed and requested God to answer, and God did. Not just because of his servant, but also for the people to know he is the Lord. Yes. Once God revealed himself by fire, the people fell and cried out, Lord, he is Lord. Just as God flashed fire from heaven for Elijah, he will help us accomplish what we have commanded us to do. It may not be as dramatic in our lives as it was Elijah's, but God will make resources available to us in creative ways to accomplish his purpose. He will give us the wisdom and the courage to take a stand for truth. It won't be like in this narrative where the prophets of Baal were in a crisis and they're desperately calling out, and there was only silence. When we are right in standing with God, we call out to the Lord, he hears us. Because he knows our sincerity and he knows the situation before we even cry out. The Lord our God offers us true answers, guidance and wisdom. Just like Elijah, we can have faith that whatever God commands us to do, he will provide what we need to carry it out. Amen. Or carry it through. Our decision to serve him has to be sincere. We can't flip-flop like a fish, because everything about us will flip-flop. Like our thoughts, our choices, our decisions. See, Moses was a good example of someone who was not indecisive. He made a bold decision to follow God. You'll read that in Hebrew, and because of time I'm going to leave that. In Hebrew 11 and 24, he took the decision to stand. By faith, Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose to be mistreated along with the people of God, rather than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. A prophet who was reared in the luxury of Egypt's palaces and ensured all things man strive for, learned that it is not the possessions of things, but the forsaking of them that brings him closer to God. He refused the fame amongst the social elite in Egypt. Like one writer said, instead of being a museum mummified, he made the decision to walk in truth and became a prominent man of God. His humbling association with the suffering of people of God meant more to him than the temporary satisfaction of his appetites. His faith allowed him to see that the fabulous treasure houses of Egypt were worthless in the light of God and eternity. Loyalty to God and the love for his people were valued by him more than the combined wealth of Pharaoh. He knew that none of those things would count for anything after he died. Moses made the decision from the land of bondage, a total separation from the political world. He feared Pharaoh so little because he feared God much. Moses totally rejected Egypt's religion and its idolatry, just as Elijah did with King Ahaz, Jezebel and the Baal prophets, and the people who chose to follow him. We are to do the same. We're not to be enslaved by the things of this world. Serving God is not easy. It is not a part-time job where you serve God and then you serve man sometime. Even though 2 part-time jobs give you full-time wages in this world, it doesn't with the Lord. If we're just drifting along, whatever pleasant and easy, we will someday discover that we have been worshiping false gods. Today, the gods are things that we may be tempted to follow. May not be made of wood or stone. They may be in the form of power, status, appearance, material possessions, which are just as false and dangerous because they cause us to depend on something other than God. Come on. We have to make a decision to get rid of those idols, the things that we allow to cloud our minds, and cause us to hesitate when it comes to rendering ourselves and our situations to the Lord. I leave you with this. We can't be indecisive. We have to boldly choose and solidify our faithful commitment to the Lord, who will lead us to everything we do. Jesus Christ makes a difference. Amen. May the Lord add a blessing. Amen. Amen.